join my fiance and I October 30th at 6 p.m. as we count down to Halloween during our live drunk horror movie watch party. Happy October, everyone! It's time once again to put out the decorations, prepare the candy bowl, and curl up on the couch with some good horror films. But with so many scary movies out there, and many of which that go completely under the radar, it can be difficult to find which one to watch. So this year, I'm once again recommending you 5 horror films you should totally check out this October, if you haven't already. As always, I'm not going to discuss films that many people have probably already seen or heard of, like Terrifier, while also avoiding super recent films that are still within the public consciousness, like Weapons. Instead, I'm highlighting films that many may not be aware of or are overshadowed by some of the more popular horror films out there. This list is obviously not a top 5 or anything like that, as I didn't want any of these films to outweigh one another, so this list is in no particular order. And of course, I'll try to remain as spoiler-free as possible. Let's start off with the 2023 film Late Night with the Devil. When I first heard about this film's premise, I was immediately excited to check it out, and thankfully it did not disappoint. On the night of Halloween 1977, a late-night talk show prepares for its Halloween special. In an effort to boost ratings, the show's host brings an allegedly possessed girl on as a guest and attempts to communicate with the spirit possessing her. The malicious spirit then proceeds to slowly expose the horrors of hell to the host and audiences nationwide. The film utilizes elements of analog horror, found footage, and documentary filmmaking, all culminating into an excellent viewing experience. The realism depicted of being behind the scenes on a late-night show from the 70s was wonderfully done. The filmmakers nailed the aesthetic and feel of shows from that era, and the pacing is highly engaging. The film is also known for being one of the earliest films to strategically utilize AI images in a brief montage. Although this was seen as extremely controversial at the time, it led to a necessary discussion about the use of AI in cinema, as the technology is swiftly developing and will likely see more and more of it in the future. Despite this, Late Night with the Devil still manages to be an incredibly memorable and unique contemporary horror film. If you're in the mood for a scary movie that goes beyond the typical cliches, definitely give this one a watch. Moving on to an absolute classic in horror cinema. If you haven't seen it, you should totally check out They Live, 1988. Not only is this film one of my personal favorites, it is also one of the most culturally impactful films of the horror genre. A vagabond arrives in Los Angeles, California, where he encounters a preacher who delivers a foreboding message. After finding a box full of sunglasses and trying on a pair, he discovers that the city and all of its denizens are being controlled by subliminal messaging and an alien race disguised as humans. The film was written and directed by John Carpenter, who's best known for Halloween and the 1982 remake of The Thing. Although Carpenter's legacy in filmmaking is vast with so many celebrated works, I would argue that this film is perhaps the most important piece of cinema he has ever created. The political and economic commentary is very blunt, yet incredibly potent, as Carpenter displays his critiques of Ronald Reagan's economic policies and the increasing commercialization of the pop culture and politics of the era. Despite being heavily criticized on its release, the film became a cornerstone of counterculture, gaining a huge cult following, leading to countless parodies, homages, and making its way into the collective societal lexicon. They Live delivers a fantastic blend of horror, action, and gripping social commentary that still holds weight to this day. In the mood for a comedy this spooky season, then you should watch 1992's Death Becomes Her. I originally went into this film with very minimal expectations, yet I was completely blown away by the end of it. A washed-up narcissistic actress laments her fading career and beauty. Desperate and envious of her rival, she consumes a potion that promises youth and eternal life. After her husband attempts to stage a fatal accident, they are both horrified to discover that no matter how much her body falls apart, she literally cannot die. Not the kind of film to expect from Robert Zemeckis immediately following his Back to the Future trilogy. The film is such a departure from anything the director has made before it or since. Nevertheless, the film still manages to capture the style and charm of Zemeckis' other works. It has since become a cult classic amongst horror fans, a celebrated work within the LGBT community, and has even been resurrected recently as a Broadway musical. Death Becomes Her is a fun black comedy that will fit nicely within anyone's Halloween watch party. Not a 90s kid? Perhaps you want a more contemporary horror comedy. How about Dream Scenario from 2023? Satirical comedies are kind of a guilty pleasure of mine, and having a surreal dark comedy narrative starring Nicolas Cage is a recipe for a memorable piece of cinema. A university professor of no particular importance suddenly finds himself a subject of stardom as people start seeing him appear in their dreams. His fame turns to infamy as his dream self slowly becomes more wicked and violent, ruining his real-life reputation. The film was loosely based on and references the real-life hoax of this man, where people supposedly all witnessed the same man appearing in their dreams. It's always a treat to see Nicolas Cage's over-the-top performances in a horror setting, and this particular film does not disappoint. The dream sequences are all so unique, and the sinister progression of these scenes have you excitedly anticipating the next. The satirical comedy captured in the film is very humorous, while also being a unique critique on fame and the folly of someone who never should have received the notoriety to begin with. Dream Scenario is an unforgettable horror comedy that you don't want to sleep on. If you're a fan of Nicolas Cage or looking for an out-of-pocket film to view this month, I highly recommend checking it out. Last but very not least, I'd like to recommend the 1994 film In the Mouth of Madness. If you've been following me for a while, you already know my love of cosmic horror, and this film is up there with one of the best homages of Lovecraft's works. The upcoming release of a missing and acclaimed horror author's newest novel leads an insurance investigator on a search to find the missing novelist. The journey turns south as he begins to encounter strange individuals, witness bizarre phenomena, and experience horrors beyond human comprehension. It's a complete coincidence that another John Carpenter film made this list, but it just goes to show his range and skill as a horror filmmaker. The scenes of horror are outstanding, as the prosthetics and animatronics depicted in the effects still hold up as a cinematic spectacle. Seeing the main character delve into insanity perfectly portrays what makes Lovecraft's writing so engaging. Although the film was a box office failure and received mixed reviews upon release, the directing, acting, visual effects, and surreal narrative led to this film being considered an ambitious and creative horror experience for its time in more contemporary critiques. In the Mouth of Madness is a must-watch for cosmic horror enthusiasts. You're definitely going to want to stick around for the absolute madness this film evokes. So these were yet another 5 horror films I recommend you watch this month. Make sure to come back and let me know your thoughts of them down in the comments. And if you have a horror film that you would like to recommend, please give it a shout out. I'm always looking for more horror movies to binge during October, so your suggestions are very much appreciated. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Have a spooky day! Bye bye!